Welcome to the Brand Theory Podcast, the podcast for helping you uncover your passion, realize your purpose, and take the aligned action. Together, we're going to prove the theory that when we live our lives on brand, the possibilities become limitless. I'm your host, Danielle Marquesi, branding expert and business coach. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Brand Theory Podcast. Today, I am speaking with Nikki Nash, a podcast host, Hay House author, motivational speaker, and creator of the Genius Profit Society, a training and development company on a mission to equip entrepreneurs with the tools and resources they need to share and profit from their message. I also just learned that Nikki is a fellow Jersey girl, which probably is what I should have led with because it's just a different breed, guys. But welcome to the show, Nikki.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, go Jersey.
There's just something about it, guys. We were talking a little bit, probably for 10 minutes about how great the food is, and you just can't get it anywhere else. Pizza, bagels, Italian, everything. You just can't get it like you can get it in Jersey. So if you haven't visited, once the pandemic is over, please come visit us and we'll show you all the good spots.
I love that.
Yeah. So first question for you, I always like to start asking this is, how did you get started in this entrepreneurial journey of yours? I think people just appreciate hearing journeys, stories, and relating to that on one level or another and finding it inspiring to either press the start button or keep going on their own journey. So I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, there's been a windy and interesting path to entrepreneurship. But I probably since a young age wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know entrepreneurs were a thing. And I wanted to be an actress. I was always creating things. I loved writing. I wanted to be somebody who created something and monetized it. But to be honest, there were a lot of mindset blocks that I didn't even know were mindset blocks. Like I didn't know mindset blocks were a thing. So when I was in high school wanting to go into acting, I didn't go for it because I had all these beliefs around, how are you going to make it? How are you going to make any money? What are you doing? When probably that would have been the best time to do it because I wouldn't have had any commitments, any reason to have to make money. But I didn't go for it. And then I ended up becoming an English major. I love writing and wanted to be a journalist and didn't go for it because I didn't know if I could be an on-air personality, which is funny to say now when like 90% of what I do is podcasting and interviews and things like that. But I wasn't confident in myself then. And on the side, I was always finding things to sell, like let me sell consulting. As a kid, I remember there was a woman at a nursing home who had little boxes and she just painted them and she's like, what am I going to do with them? And I was volunteering. I said, I'll sell them for you. Like I was constantly coming up with, oh yeah, I could totally do that. But I ultimately had this belief that I had to get a job and make money. And so I ended up taking a job in marketing and really just kept going from job to job, looking for the job that was going to give me the freedom and fulfillment that I was looking for. And so I felt like something was wrong with me because I kept quitting a job after I think the shortest period I was at a job was 6 months and the longest I was at a job was 3 years. And so usually every 2 was when I would leave and go to the next thing because I was looking for the fulfillment, it factor of a job.
Yeah.
And I ultimately realized that it wasn't the job, it was me. And it's because I would be at places where I loved my team. I was making good money. I was on the track to get promoted again. And I was like, I do not want this.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Please let me be. And so it got to a point where at my very last job, I was head of marketing at a tech startup. And I had already decided 2 years earlier I was going to start a business and I still hadn't done it. In fact, I used working at a startup as my excuse for, getting entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah.
And I was miserable. I became a soulless zombie, like walking around, going through the motions. And everybody could tell. Like I could tell, my team could tell, my best friends could tell, my family could tell. And even though I was living in Boston, Massachusetts at the time, and I was, still good 4 hours or so from everybody. They were like, what is going on with
Yeah, they
you?
could still feel it.
Yeah. And my best friend was like, well, just quit. Like, just start your own thing. You've been talking about doing your own thing. What's the worst that could happen? Right. And I was like, you're right. I mean, she's like, you're miserable now. Like, if you could be even a smidgen happier, then it's totally worth it. And
Yeah.
so I quit my job, no plan. And I was teaching digital marketing classes on the side. I was teaching personal branding workshops on the side. And I had made a lot of friends in the Boston startup community. And interestingly enough, when I quit, I had clients come in. I had, people refer me because I had been making connections, getting my name out there.
Yeah.
And I just started monetizing it. And the business evolved a bit over the years, but it all started with this belief that, I needed to have freedom and fulfillment in my life. And the thing that was driving me the most to do was to become an entrepreneur and to monetize my zone of genius, what I like doing, what
Yeah.
people would want to buy from me.
Yeah. I love that. And how long has it been since the day you quit?
It has been a little over 5 years.
Amazing. Does it feel like
Yeah.
yesterday or does it feel like 5 years?
It feels like, I don't know, it goes back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, it's been 10 years. I've been doing this forever. Like sometimes I can't remember having a career. Like
Yeah.
I know that I spent 10 years working for other people, but it almost feels like I never did that. And I know
Yeah.
that's not true, but I'm like, oh, I've just always been in this
Yeah.
business.
Well, because it's like a testament to how you are now has always been a part of you. It's always been there. It's just been bogged down by everything else you were believing or not believing in yourself. But it was so interesting when you were saying that you wanted to be an actress and you want to do this and that, because I wanted to try out for my school plays so bad. Like thought I was the greatest thing my shower head had ever heard me sing or my steering wheel has ever heard. And I thought I mean, I still think I can now because I'm much more confident, but I never did it because I was so scared. And my friends pushed me and my family pushed me to do it. Never did it. Freshman year went by. By sophomore year, I was definitely not doing it. Junior year, by senior year, I had almost convinced myself to try out for the play, but I thought I would get laughed out because the seniors coming in and, all the things that you convince yourself of. And then after college, I tried the next best thing to work behind the scenes and work on a TV set and found that that was just like super rigorous and something you have to truly, truly love to and be like super determined in it. But anyway, it's just funny that you also kind of had that experience of lying to ourselves and not believing in ourselves. And then the second that you do, the second that you go for it, and it was, even though it was different than what you thought it was going to be, that belief you have in yourself is so powerful and it requires immediate results, it sounds like, with your experience too.
Yeah, and what's so cool is like, you think about Samuel L. Jackson. I think he started
Mhm.
acting when he was like 40 or something. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there are actors who didn't get their big break until they were well into their career. I'm thinking about Vera Wang. When did
Yeah.
she, I think she designed her first dress at like 40 or something. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because she's probably what, like 60 now?
she's
Or,
70 and she looks like she's
no
20. Yeah. Did
way.
you see the photo of her like with her like
She's
in a sports
70?
bra? Yes.
Damn,
She
I hope I look
is
that good when
fabulous.
I'm
I know. I
70.
literally was like, I need to change my life plan. New life plan. Look like Vera Wang.
Put that on the dream board.
Right?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
but all
crazy.
those dreams are still possible. And
Yeah.
even though I didn't believe I could do it at the time, I look back and I believe that everything I'm doing now is going to lead me back to the path where I want to have a TV show at some point, and I
Me
see it
too.
as a
Let's have
possibility, right?
one
Yeah. So we'll record here in New Jersey. It'll be amazing.
together. Yes, you guys are all invited. You can come as guests.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah, it's
yeah, that's
it's
awesome. It's never too late, guys. It's never too late to go for that dream. It's not stupid. Just do it one step at a time, for
yeah.
sure. Good. My next question for you is getting into a little bit of what you do and how you kind of work in your now new job career. So there's a million and 100 million different ways to market your business, and there's lots of people who say this is the blueprint for you, and this is the strategy, and this is the way it's going to work. But a lot of the times we'll try that, we'll invest big money in it, and it just doesn't work. And from what I understand, what you teach is that there isn't a direct blueprint for every single person. Everyone has their own unique one, but it's not a mass blueprint that's going to work. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit to that factor and then kind of go into how we can find our blueprints and what that looks like. That's a loaded question, so take your time. If you need a follow-up question, let me know.
Yeah, I'm going to chunk it down because I'm going to answer that question, but I think in doing it, I probably am going to answer and address a couple of different questions that I'm going to say that you asked with me. So the first thing, I'm right there with you, and I feel as though so many people have been there where they invested money in a system or a blueprint or a roadmap, and then they tried it and they're like, hey, it didn't work, right? Yeah. And what I encourage people to do, I'm going to talk like before they make an investment in a plan or, whatnot, is to really realize that there are probably like a million different things that they could do to market their business and to get the results that they want. But you have to start with, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to have happen for you? And also kind of what are your values and what are the things that are exciting for you? I believe marketing can be fun. Mm-hmm. And that it should be fun. And so, for example, for my business, I really find podcasting fun. I find it so freaking fun. And to the point where I just said, I'm doubling down on podcasting. That's one of our biggest marketing strategies because I love it so much. And when you are clear in terms of what are the things that you love doing, then you can start asking yourself, okay, how can I do more of this in my marketing? So if you love speaking, if you love writing, if you love being interviewed, if you love interviewing people, if you love just going live for 15, 20 minutes or, having somebody, the same person every week, like chat with you live, or you just answer people's questions. There are so many things you could do, and you don't have to do what other people say. And it doesn't mean that their plan won't work for your business model or the type of clients you're going after. It just means that if you aren't aligned with it, if you don't love it, if it doesn't excite you, then it is not going to go well for you. Mm-hmm. And I distinctly remember one of my early coaches really was all about doing those 5-day challenges, right? Do a 5-day challenge and do them live. And every time, and then I beat myself up over it. Yeah. Spoiler alert, but every time I would try to do a 5-day challenge. And by day 2 or 3, I was drained. I was exhausted. Yeah. Energetically, I can't do that, which is interesting because I could spend more time being interviewed or interviewing people on a podcast. Like I could go for 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, and I'm energized and I'm like, woohoo, that was cool. And then I still need a nap afterwards, but I'll make it to day. I'll make it to day 3, 4, 5. I could not make it to day 5 of a challenge. And I kept beating myself up over it. Like I keep saying I'm going to do this challenge. I keep struggling to do the challenge. Even when all the content was mapped out, everything was mapped out. I knew exactly what I was going to do and say and teach, but I would just found it draining. Yeah. And that just shouldn't have been my strategy then. You know what I mean? Like there are other things that would work. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, first part, realize that there are tons of things you could do and you don't have to do them all. Choose the one strategy, like the one marketing strategy that you're going to start with to figure out how you're going to grow your business, that you are excited by, that you're going to double down on. And yes, can you add in other ways like strategies or tactics along the way? Absolutely. But for most people, if you don't already have a consistent flow of clients and customers coming your way, start with one marketing plan.
Yeah, instead of doing all the things, one thing at a time. There's this book, I forgot the author. I'll find it and link it below. It's called One Thing at a Time, or One Thing, or something like that. I should probably reread it. But
is it the one thing? Because that book can be summed up in one sentence.
Which is the one thing?
Yeah, what's the one thing that you could do such that everything else is on your list is either taken care of or unnecessary?
I guess that's it. It's been a couple of years, but that's what comes to mind when you're saying all that. But it's so true of just, I think as like baby entrepreneurs, right? We feel we have to do everything. So that kind of goes against the feeling that we have of wanting to try all these things to get our name out there, to get the clients booked, to get the interviews booked. So it almost feels unnatural to focus on one thing at a time. And I think we also kind of like don't realize that we really need to listen to and pay attention to our intuition, especially as baby entrepreneurs who just hired the first coach, or even a couple years in, I love my coach and I love my clients. So there's been times where I'm like, I love you, but no, like I can't do that. And like my clients have done it to me, and I shouldn't say that. It's not that you can't do it, but it's that there are like you're explaining, there's certain ways to do it that works for you. My phrase is picking the on-brand way. There's
Yeah.
all these things that can be taken from what you're being taught and adjusted to what works for you. Sorry, I cut you off. Continue.
No, I'm right there with you. And I think, what ends up happening, and this is what happened to me, is that I tried to do all of the things, right?
Mhm.
I tried to do all of the things just to find the one thing that was going to work. And what I ended up happening is I was doing all of the things. I got burnt out. And then I said, well, I need to scale back and I need to only do, one of the things, right? Or two of the things. And then you scale back, but then you have all of these platforms and all of these half done things that you've put out into the world, and you're just like, oh man, but I feel a little guilty getting rid of some of this stuff. And it's like, no, like, yes, you can delete accounts, get rid of stuff, say, hey, I'm not showing up here. And you can choose one platform that you double down on. You can choose one way to generate clients and then start there, and then you can add to it. But most people don't take the time to be really curious to figure out, how can I make this plan work for me? What's working, what's not working? I tell people to test like a MAAD scientist. And what that means is MAAD is actually an acronym. It's a something. It's an acronym that stands for make a plan, activate the plan, activate and evaluate the plan or adjust the plan, and then do it again. So make the plan, adjust the plan, do it again. And so
I love that.
It just is a cycle. So most people make the plan, they activate the plan, and they don't adjust the plan or do it again.
That's so true.
Yeah, MAAD. Sorry, I meant to state that it has two A's. It's like MAAD. I was like,
Got it.
People are probably like, what the heck, Nikki? Do you know how to spell?
Do you know how to spell?
This chick does not know how to spell. Yeah, make the plan, activate the plan, adjust the plan, do it again.
Yeah.
And I think people, especially when you're just starting as an entrepreneur, but it's equally as important when you've been in the game a long time, you have to be persistent and consistent. Like, you essentially have to focus on very few things, do them over and over again, and do them really freaking well.
Yeah, you're right. That consistency is key. And the only way to get to that point where you're doing them really freaking well is to start, and to be okay with not exactly knowing how to do it to the best of your ability, and trust yourself, trust that intuition that you'll learn it the more and more you do it. Don't give up after the fifth time it doesn't work. Do the sixth time. You'll learn something from that sixth time.
I tell people, and people are like, how long when you say do it again? I'm like, a year minimum. And people are like, you want me to do the same thing for a year? I'm like, yes, I want you to choose one product that you're going to market, and I want you to choose the one way you're going to market it. And I want you to do that for a year. And in fact, I want you to look at your calendar and choose, 6 to 8 times a year, you're going to do the same. Like, if you do choose to do something like a webinar or a live challenge or some sort of launch for whatever it is that you're selling. If you're going to do something like that, I want you to do that like 8 times, 6 times a year, so that you can quickly go, okay, I did all these things. Did it work? Nope. But also, when you have that on your calendar, if you do something in January and it doesn't work, but you're doing it in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, then you're like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work, but I'm doing it again. What should I change before I do it one more time? And it's on your calendar, and you're already talking about how you're doing it again, because otherwise you give up.
You give up, or you try to force something new out because you think you have to, because the first thing didn't sell or the first thing didn't work. You didn't get the results. But if you're using the same method with a new product, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work.
Yeah, like, I'm like, same product, same method, over and over again, unless it's like really, really not soul aligned, because you will have things that will bomb. I have done launches where 0 people have purchased 100%. Anything. It's so common. I thought I was the only one, and I was really embarrassed, and I didn't talk about it. And then way after I bombed, I had talked to a friend, and she's like, oh yeah, that happened to me all the time.
All the time.
Why don't people talk about this? Support group, bombed launches all
sign me up
time. Okay. Bombed. So it's like, just do it over and over again. I even think about, I shared, I'm doubling down on podcasting. Luckily, I chose like my first interviews. I found my friends, like people who I met who had podcasts that I was friends with. And I'm like, great. I'm going to just keep doing podcast interviews with you. And then after I do them over and over again, I'll start figuring out what's working, what's not working, even
Right.
from could I answer that question or was
Right.
I terrible? You know?
Don't ever listen back to your own episodes, guys. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Or you could go to the Michael Jordan route and he would watch replays of his games over and over and over again. And that's how he got so good. So you have to go either one way or another. Like you have to pendulum,
Yeah,
like don't
you're
go in the
right.
middle and
You're
like
right.
look and judge yourself. It's like look and go, I'm going to get better. Or, you know, if you're like, hey, I know I'm not going to do that, then avoid it altogether, maybe.
That's a good tip. Actually, while you're on that subject of podcasting, when you say you're doubling down, can you speak a little bit how you use your podcast as such a marketing tool for yourself?
Yeah. So I started my podcast in October of 2019 because in it must have been February or March of 2000. Did I say 18 or 19?
You said 19.
Okay, sweet. Because I'm like, did I just say 18? Because I definitely meant 19. In February or March of 2019, I found a note in my phone. And so if you're one of the me's where I have an iPhone and then I have notes and then I write notes to myself and then I probably never look at that note again. And I have like 50,000 bajillion
I
notes
just
in my
looked at
phone,
mine today. I have 733. Like, of
right?
what?
What could I have possibly written down that was so important at the time? But I was at a conference and I was like, gosh, I have way too many notes. And I just started going through them and deleting them while I was
Mm.
like, it was raining or something. I was like sitting in the hotel room talking to a friend, right? Just deleting these notes. And then I find one that was 3 years old that said, start podcast, which meant
Wow.
sometime in like early 2016 or like the end of 2015, I had intended to start a podcast and I never did it.
And podcasting then was like, I mean, to my knowledge, not that frequent as it is now. It's probably like a rare thing.
Yeah, especially in probably the industry we're in, like there were definitely podcasters because it's probably been around for like, who knows, like 20 years or something crazy. But it wasn't like a hot thing. Like it wasn't like, ooh, I didn't even listen. I must have listened to a podcast maybe like once, was like, this seems like a good idea, and then probably forgot about it, right?
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was I was at a conference and you could choose the like events or the speakership things that you went to, and I was there as a speaker, and so I didn't have to go to anything, but I had a free ticket, right? So I started going to all of the podcasting trainings, like how the heck does somebody start a podcast, and it kind of got me confident, like, all right, I'm going to do this. And so when I started my podcast, my intention was I'm going to do solo episodes and I'm going to just nurture the heck out of my audience and then say, if you would like more support, you know, book a call with me and we can work together one-on-one, right? Because
Yeah.
that was my business model and that was my game plan. And what ended up happening is I had a friend who was working on something or launching something. And I was like, she's really cool. I would love to support her. She's invited me to speak at her conferences multiple times. So I've spoken on her stages. I'm like, I want to do something to help promote her conferences. And I'm like, what do I have? I'm like, I have a podcast. I'll just bring her on as a guest, right?
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening is, this will answer the question of how podcasting has helped me grow my business. But what ended up happening is I started having guests on my show.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was I not only learned from these guests who were dropping magical knowledge that I then implemented in my business. And,
Yeah.
and
It's the best part. It's like free coaching.
I know. It was like, this is brilliant, right? And then I'm like implementing it and seeing my business grow. But I'm helping them promote their message, right?
Yeah.
And then they're promoting the podcast episode that they were on. So now I'm getting in front of their audience and their people are like, let me go listen to this podcast. And I have mixed of episodes where it's not always interviews. It's also me doing solo episodes.
Yeah.
And so I just started having this following of people. And I didn't strategically have a plan on how I was monetizing this at first, to be honest. I just was like, let's see if I can consistently do this thing that I just committed to, because most people don't get past like 8 episodes or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, let me see if I can commit. But what ended up happening is I started realizing, oh, okay, why don't I offer a freebie or something from the podcast to get people on my email list, right? What if I tell people to DM me on Instagram or leave me a voice memo if they have questions or to tell me what they think of the episode, and I'll connect with them that way. And I just started saying, hey guys, you've been listening to me. You get how I am. You get my vibe. You're meeting my friends and people I'm having on the show. Like, let's connect. And it's kind of grown from there where I'm like, oh, wait, I maybe, especially at the beginning, wasn't big enough to have sponsors, but I'm like, I can become an affiliate of the products that I recommend anyway, and then promote them on my show, right? And then we monetize it that way. So it ends up being a list builder, a affiliate, revenue stream.
Right.
It ends up being an opportunity for me to connect and learn from other people who have then become referral partners of mine.
Right.
They like tell other people, yo, check out Nikki, join her programs. She's magic. And I have people that straight up listen and go buy. So it's been really awesome, but it's something that you have to stay consistent with it, and you constantly learn and figure out what's working. And the more you do it, the better it is for your business. And if anything else, one of the things that I've said to myself, I'm like, these episodes are great. They're giving a lot of value. So I'm going to put them in a membership site for my clients and label them based and categorize them as like bonus content. Like, it's free content. They could listen to the podcast, but I'm just going to create an easy like source for people when they want to listen to something. And it's like I'm adding more value back to the people that are in my programs. And it's something simple that I didn't have to do anything crazy for. It's literally like, you could listen to this free anyway. It's bonus content. I'm just organizing it differently, or maybe including the video that was recorded at the same time.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah. And then they have a way to easily search for, oh, I have a question about this. Oh, you did an episode on it and you linked it right here. Great. I'm going to go listen to it.
That's awesome. So how many episodes are you doing a week right now?
Ooh, so that has evolved over time, and I tend to go rogue. So I started one episode a week, and then in 2020, I really wanted to do an exercise in creating a system and a structure to consistently bust out episodes. So I went rogue and from my original plan, and I dropped episodes twice a week, right? So I did Tuesdays and Fridays. But then that wasn't enough in 2020. I was like, but what if it's National Best Friends Day, which came on a Monday, and I brought on my best friend, and then my birthday week. Yeah, I was like, my birthday week, it's my birthday. So I dropped an episode every day that week. I ended up producing over 108, I think it was, episodes in 2020 alone.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was just like, I am going all in. But it really forced me, like when you do something that many times and you have that much content, then I started getting really strong at interviewing. I started having really great systems and structures in place. So I have somebody who edits my show. We have systems galore so that it's easy to do. I knew that it was dropping like clockwork. And then in 2021, I said, I'm also going to be being interviewed on podcasts. I can't do everything I want to do because I actually have a goal of trying to be interviewed on that many episodes. Like, I'm like, can I get to 108 interviews? Right. I'm like,
what number is this?
I have to go check. But I'm like, I definitely can't do 200. I mean, I could try, but I might not have a voice or a life. So
hey, you're just training to be a talk show host. Let's do it.
Exactly.
Come on, Joe.
Exactly. I remember one time somebody was like, what's your dream job? I'm like, Kelly Ripa. I was like, can I just like, right? That's my dream job. But yeah, so now we're down to one episode a week, but I've changed it a little bit where I make the episode series. So I find synergistic episodes and I put them together. So for example, I have a work hard, play harder series where
like that.
Yeah, I interview somebody who teaches entrepreneurs how to take maternity or parental leave when they have a child. I have somebody who's like, hey, here's how I work 3 days a week. I have somebody who's like, here's how I build my business working like very minimally because I have a full-time job. It's my side hustle, but here's my system for me still having a life. Yeah. I have, like all these people, talking boundaries, like, and I'm just like, ooh, these episodes go together. And it's great. Pro tip for anybody who's doing a podcast, because then I can say in our next episode, we're talking about like, we're going to continue this conversation. I'm bringing on this guest to talk about this. And if they liked that episode, then they're going to more likely hit subscribe and listen to the next episode, which just means they're spending more time with me and my guests. And ideally, they're down with it, buying or investing in one of our programs.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And what I love about, there's so much I love about the podcast platform, but it has become one of my favorite pieces of my business as well. Something I put off for so long because of the fear monger inside your head. But what I love about it is you have no idea the capability of its reach. And when you go and look at your stats, like the countries it just all of a sudden starts popping up in. And I kind of like that you can't see the names, right? It's like kind of just numbers and places, because we get so attached to those names. We get so attached to those likes and all those downloads and the numbers and stuff like that. Whereas podcasting, it's like way more exciting to see the cities you're popping up in and where you're going. And all of a sudden you're a global brand and you have global reach. And that to me is so, so exciting.
Yeah. And it really forces you to think strategically about, hey, if I want to continuously impacting the people in, Malaysia, I don't know why I just
Yeah.
picked or like somewhere off the top of my head, but if I want to keep impacting people there who are listening to my show, I need to find a strategic way to tell them about things that they can keep listening to or they can
Yeah.
keep engaging with so that, it's not just, hey, I listened to one episode and I bounced. It's, hey, no, I listened to your episode and I watched YouTube videos of yours or other things and they kept getting value because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're all trying to, make some sort of impact in the world.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that I actually have a couple listeners, at least a couple, and myself included, who eventually would love to do speaking engagements. And you talked a little bit about that. So can you just tell us how you kind of got into that and maybe any small tips you have about starting that or starting to think about that?
Yeah. So first thing I will say, and I really do believe this, and it's relevant for anything that you want to do. First step is committing to doing it in the first place.
Mm,
And when you commit and you like declare, something happens in the universe. Like I kid you not, when you decide, all of a sudden things start happening. So I decided I wanted to speak. I said, this year I'm speaking, I'm a speaker. And I identified myself as a speaker. And I went to a conference and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a speaker at this conference one day. I want to speak. And what ended up happening is there was a Facebook group for the event or for people that were going to any of their events. And somebody posted in the group, hey, I know this event's huge. There's thousands of people, but I'm getting together a small group of like 15, 20 people at this restaurant. They're going to give us a room. The food's pre-listed so you can see what we're getting, but you just have to buy a ticket and it covers the food and everything, right? And there was somebody who backed out, right? And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to sign up for this. And the person who was co-hosting it also was looking for a roommate. And I said, you know what? I'm also going to room with that person because I was a procrastinator. I don't have a place to stay, but I have a plane ticket and a conference ticket to this
so I'm
hotel.
going.
So I'm going. And what ended up happening is the person not who ended up being my roommate, but who was also co-hosting this event is now a good friend of mine. And her name's Emily. She owns 6 Degrees Society. And what Emily does whenever she's doing an event is she curates connections. So she has at the beginning of the event so that you don't feel like, oh, I'm awkwardly, I don't know anybody.
Right.
She pairs you with somebody, like not really speed dating, like you're matched with somebody for 15 minutes and you just talk and get to know each other. And you each have like, I think at that time it was like 7.5 minutes or something. And then we switch and you not switch there, but you meet one other person, right? So what ended up happening is the second person I was paired with, her name's Shannon. She's freaking amazing. She owns RebelCon, Shannon Siriano, and she runs events. And she was telling me what she did. I told her what I did. And I said, if you ever need a speaker, let me know, right? So I just let her know. I said, I'm more than happy to support you in your, like with what you're doing anyway, shape or form. And then she started telling me about a community that she was learning about and wasn't sure if it was the right model for her. And I happened to be a part of that community. So the next day I sent her an email and I said, hey, I know you're looking at this community. I know you're looking to build one. I'm just going to share with you some of the things I liked about it and the things I didn't like about it so that as you're building your community, you have, one man's opinion for whatever it's worth, right? But I was trying to be of value. Thank you so much. Emailed me a little bit later, hey, I would love to have you come speak, right?
And so it is.
In Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia. I live in New Jersey. I think was I still in New Jersey at the time? Or was I in Boston? I don't know where I lived at the time.
Either way, it was a really long car ride.
It was a long trip. And I was like, and I wasn't getting paid and I didn't care. My butt like commuted down. I ended up having a client in the Virginia area, so I met with her in person. I made it like a
Oh,
full-on
that's
business
awesome. I love
experience,
when stuff like that happens.
right? And it's because you just offered I offered my time and I was of value to the speaker. And so I did that for her. And then I met Emily clearly through 6 Degrees, who runs 6 Degrees and was co-hosting this event. But because I
Mhm.
was rooming with the other co-host, I went early. And so I helped them. And then we started talking. And then Emily invited me to speak in San Francisco at one of her things. And so I flew out there. I think I used points to fly out there.
Yeah.
She let me stay at her place. And she wasn't even going to be there. It was just her boyfriend at the time. They're now married. So I like
That's
crashed on
so
their couch
funny.
while he was there. You just kind of like go rogue and do whatever
Yeah.
you can. And so I say all of this because the point of these stories is, first I committed and I was open to any opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
So whether it's speaking, book deals, PR, doesn't matter. You have to first commit and be open to it. And then you have to talk about it. You have to tell people that I would love to speak. I'm happy to speak, volunteer your time, and really be of value. So
Yeah.
whether that means you have a podcast, look for people who have places that you want to speak at, invite them to be a guest,
Mhm.
get to know them, build that relationship. I gave some tips. I helped set up an event, and we just got to know each other. And then they're like, yeah, it would be really great.
Yeah.
And so you're just to be of value. And one of my friends and speaking mentors, Trisha, what she taught me is that if you like always, even if you're not actually charging them to speak, always have a fee. And so what you do is you say like, I'm waiving my fee for you. And then that's different than saying I'm speaking for free.
Mm, I like that.
Yeah. And even energetically, it's different. So it's really just, my first speaking gigs were fee waived events and experiences, right? But they gave me testimonials. They took video of some of these, that I could then use to make a speaker reel. They posted it on their Instagram and stories, and I just kept posting that I was speaking places. And then another friend who I didn't even know was involved in helping people get events for a company, she saw what I was doing and was like, oh, hey, I see you're speaking at all these places. We actually are looking for somebody to speak. Can you come speak? And you just promote it everywhere. Like, oh, I had so much fun speaking at this event. Oh, I'm speaking here next time. Can't wait. And you just socialize it, and you never know who's going to see that you're speaking and maybe even recommend you to somebody who's doing
Yeah.
events.
That's awesome. That's so cool. See, guys, luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. And
Yes.
I mean, I have to give my boyfriend Joe credit for that one because he tells me that all the time. But
Yeah,
it's so
Joe.
true. True Jersey guy, if we're being honest. True Jersey Italian guy.
I was going to say, I'm like, his name's Joe. I was like, is he Italian? I
Oh,
love it.
but yeah, it's so true. And that factor of you declaring it is so important. Thing is, guys, when people don't know that they can buy from us, right? Until we tell them we're open for business, until we have something to offer. The same thing for anything new, like Nikki was saying, podcasting, speaking, marketing, anything you want to do, you have to declare it to yourself first and put it out there to whatever you believe in. Amanda Francis has that saying, God, angels, universe. They'll have your back, right? Like they'll have your back. If you're sitting there declaring this, you have to stand in that power and take the action one step at a time, guys.
Absolutely. And literally, like, start with people in your network. Ask people if you can speak. And if you can't find speaking engagements right away, create something. Like, put together
Yeah.
like a local event and speak at it. Because when people see you speak or you have footage of you speaking, it begets more speaking. Because sometimes people are concerned to hire you to speak at first because they don't know if you can speak. It's kind of like
Right.
television or PR. National television doesn't want you on national television until they've seen you on local and they know that you
Yeah.
didn't bomb, right?
That's
So,
so true. That's so true. That's such a great way to put it. Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Okay, so I definitely want to touch on a little bit of branding. I heard you mention before something about you used to teach, or I don't know if you still do, personal branding. So I'd love to get your opinion about that because that's like my bread and butter, personal branding, mixing that in with business branding and how they're really one of the same. And when we shine our light through our business, people connect with the human behind our business. And that's kind of really when we start seeing the results we actually want, when people feel like they can like, trust, and know us. So I'd love to hear your kind of take on that part of it.
Yeah. What I always tell people is whether you're selling yourself literally, like maybe not literally, but like, like your time, right? As an entrepreneur, I'm like, I don't think I'm getting any better with what I'm saying, but when you are what you're monetizing, your coaching, your consulting, your courses or something like that, and it's like Nikki Nash, the business, sometimes you have a hard time separating yourself from the business. And sometimes when on the flip side, if you have a business that has a name like, Market Your Genius or something like that, sometimes you focus so much on the business that you take yourself out of it, right?
Mm,
And what I like to say is either way, think of yourself as the spokesperson for your brand, for your business, right? And
yeah.
so even if I'm sharing my knowledge and my expertise, I want people to associate Nikki Nash with whatever it is I want them to feel if they were going to buy from me, whether they're buying like listening to the Market Your Genius podcast or buying the Market Your Genius book or, listening to the Nikki Nash YouTube channel. It doesn't matter. I want them to have a certain experience. And the reality is that our brands are typically built up of what other people think about you. It's like a
Yeah.
collective intelligence on you, right? What are people thinking? People love your brand, love what you've got going on, hate it. If I say Apple, you're going to have a reaction. Some people are like, yes, I'm Apple all in. Other people are going to be like, I am anti-Apple. I'm PC all the way. Some people are like, I'm Google, like, or
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
Samsung, people are Droid, they're iOS. They have usually a one way or another
Hmm.
kind of feel towards it. But whenever they hear your name, they have a reaction, and that's what your brand is. And so when you are the spokesperson of your brand, you want to 100% be yourself all the time. Like be yourself, but you want to look at what are the parts of you that are best aligned with your brand and are the best suited for being the spokesperson of the brand, right? Nikki, when she's, frustrated with her mom, is not a really good, you know, representation of the brand, because like I have these moments where I'm like, oh my God, I love my mom so much. But if she asks me how to copy paste one more time, like,
I get hey, how does the Netflix work again? Mom, it says Netflix on the remote. Like, I don't get it.
hit the Netflix button. Like, no, and it's just so funny, but it's like those are parts of who I am. It's 100% me. But does that need to show up in my business? Not so much, right? So
Hmm.
it's really looking at, okay, who am I? And in order to do this, you have to start by being 100% confident and comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't know when it happened, to be honest, for me. Like I really don't, because it was sometime during this entrepreneurial journey. It was definitely not at the beginning. Like I was me, but I wasn't like as me as I am right now.
Right.
And I can feel and tell the difference. I don't know if other people can, but I'm
Oh,
like,
I absolutely can. I always
yeah,
say entrepreneurship is like the biggest personal growth journey that you will go through and did not expect at
yeah,
all.
at all. But it's like you just kind of get to this point where you're like, I am like, this is who I am. And you're going to have people that love you and you're going to have people that can't stand you. And
Hmm.
I don't know why I just was like thinking of Seinfeld. I'm like, stanza. Can't stand you. But like it'll happen, and that's cool. That's fine. But you want to think, all right, why do the people who love me, who vibe with me, who want my message, connect with me, and how can I lean into that more? How can I show up more to them as that person, or show that side of myself even more? And you can keep other things private because
Yeah.
that's for you.
I loved what you said about you want people to feel a certain way when they purchase something for you, and you want them to feel like it's like Nikki Nash through your product, whether that's a PDF guide or a super high level service. You want them to feel like this feeling of you got them, or this feeling of whatever you want your brand to portray. You want them to feel that in every level of your brand. Feeling and story is a huge selling factor that I don't think people realize until they're a little bit further along. So if you can get that now in the beginning, that's really important. It's really
It
good.
is. It is. And, I know what it's like at the beginning when you're like, I need this to be me, but I feel like I have no money. And so I'm going to design it myself. And just like know that whether you're at that stage or not, I look at some of my early stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh,
I know.
redesign, like let's redo some of these things. And then you'll also have to realize that there are going to be things that you are over and you maybe want to change, but
Mm.
it's a brand. Like, does anybody remember when, Gap tried to change their logo and everybody lost their mind? Like, like just Google that. People have an association with your brand and simple things. I have used the color pink probably since the inception of my business. When we were going through cover design, I literally wrote, I just don't want an all pink cover. I just don't want an all pink cover, right? We went through covers. I infused a little bit of pink into one of the versions, just because I knew that would at least be a nod to the brand. But I was like, not all pink, not all pink, not all pink. Want to know what my cover looks like?
Is it pink?
All pink. Like not all pink, but it's pink because like, the designers, they kept trying, they gave me covers and I actually chose one that wasn't pink and I was fine with it. And somebody internally at my publisher, probably because the universe was like, Nikki, just stop fighting this, said they hated that cover. And I was down with it. I was like, I'm fine with it. And they're like, I hate it. We're starting over. And then when we started over and I got the latest cover design, it was all pink. And my first reaction was, I legit said I didn't want all pink. And then I looked at it, I was like, but I kind of like it. And then I shared it with some people and they're like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's so you. I love everything about it. And I was like, oh, my
I guess I have to
is
accept
down with
that
it.
I'm the pink person.
Right. I was like, I don't want it to be a business book for women and it's pink. I was like,
Yeah,
having
I get
all
that.
sorts
I
of
get that.
feelings, all sorts of feelings about it. But they're like, but it's the type of pink that it is. And it's very you and like this. And you know what? I am a bubbly person and you just sometimes have to embrace your brand, even
Yeah.
if you're tired of it.
Yeah. That's pretty funny that you said that. It's like uh my pastor in my church, he goes, you think I wanted to be a pastor? It just kind of happens. Like sometimes it just like happens, these things that are picked for you by the universe or whoever in the colors. But that's really funny. But we're talking about the book. I want to know about your book. Tell us about what that process of writing a book was like. Was that always something you're planning to do? And how long did it take you?
Yeah. So I have wanted to write a book since I was a kid. Like, I don't even know when I didn't want to write something. I used to write poetry as a kid. I used to submit, I don't even know where I was submitting it to, but like I feel like back in the day, there were all these magazines for kids that like you could submit stuff to and they'd publish it or something. And I would submit poetry. And so I had write book on my, to-do list or my dream list for a long time. And I procrastinated the heck out of it. I just kept not doing it. And so because of fear, right? So I said, I'll write a book when I'm in college. I'll write a book before I'm 25. I'll write, or I think 21 was a number too. Like I'll write a book by the time I'm 21. I'll write a book by the time I'm 25. I'll write a book before I'm 30. I'll write a book before I'm 35. And then 35, I turned 37 this year. And I'm like, yo, I'll be damned if this book doesn't come out or exist before I'm 40. Like I'm not having, I'll write a book before I'm 40 on a list again. Okay. So I remember listening to this training that Brennan Bouchard had done that said, if I can't tell what your dreams are or what your goals are from your calendar, like the activities you have on your calendar, then they're not your goals or dreams, or like that's not what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And I literally was like, there is not one book related thing on my calendar, like not a one. And so it really forced me to go, all right, I need to figure out this thing. And I knew I wanted to try to go for a book deal just because I had that on my list for a really long time. And long story short, I started researching Hay House, which is the book publisher that I really fell in love with, and researched and spoke to a lot of people and found an opportunity to create and share a book proposal. I had, for anybody who knows Nick Pigeon, she's a business coach and strategist, and I had met her through a friend and another mentor. I met her through another mentor actually, and she shared with me some of the things she did for her proposal and her stuff, which was super helpful. And then I just kind of wrote my whole book proposal in 48 hours. I do not recommend that for anybody, but I had like a very specific deadline that I had to hit. And I procrastinated, wrote the whole thing, 48 hours, sent it. And in the moment I sent it, I just felt like I've got this. Like I just felt
Yeah.
very confident, right? And I felt very confident for a while. It just felt so aligned. And then of course, it's not like you find out the next day or the next month. It wasn't even the
Right.
same, like, like from a
Yeah.
quarter. And so I went in and out of, is this going to happen for me? Is this not going to happen for me? And I had found out, I remember Reed Tracy, who's the CEO of Hay House, he called me and it was interesting. We were on another call. I had gotten an opportunity to be mentored by the CEO of Hay House through a completely different opportunity. And it was actually after I had submitted, no, before I don't know timelines. I don't remember timelines at all, but I got that opportunity. And we had our last mentoring call. It was a group of us. And then he called me like maybe 5-10 minutes after that call ended, because he had just found out that the editorial team wanted to take my book. And so he called me to tell me. And I remember like
Chills from my head to my toe listening to this story.
I remember trying to act really cool. Like,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited. I've loved being mentored by you, like trying to seem like a cool, normal person. And then we hung up the phone and I was like running around outside, like screaming like a crazy person. Then like came at my house and then I was like finding like, where's my family? Got to call my family. Like I was just a crazy person, super excited. But that was kind of the point of that story, or how this happened, was really, again, going back to that commitment and taking the action and alignment. And that is the story of how this book came to be. And it's been a lot of fun and procrastination and intensity at the same time.
Yeah. And all divine timing at the same time.
Exactly. Like I had to learn it. Talk about entrepreneurship being a personal and self-development experience, writing a book, because man, I had to deal with myself every day. And there are some people who write every day. They're like, if you're going to write a book, you write every day. That's what you do. And that's cool. I don't know what it is. I was an English major. I've written like for 4 years of college. I think I wrote a ridiculous amount, and I just don't write every day. I mean, I journal, I write emails, but I'm not like writing
Right.
every day. And so I procrastinated the heck out of getting this book into the world. And I was listening to a podcast. It was Self-Publishing School's podcast. And I can't remember who said this, and I wish I did. I'm going to have to go back and look. But this guy being interviewed by Chandler Bolt, who is the host of the show and CEO of Self-Publishing School, he interviewed this guy who said that he has a focus group for books that he writes, and he sends them a new chapter every week and gets their feedback. And I was like, feedback, great, but accountability. The only way I'm going to write this book is if I have to send a chapter a week to somebody.
Yeah. We recognize our weak points, right? And then we deal with them head on. So that's a huge way. So is that what you did?
Yeah, I posted in Facebook groups. I posted to my email list. I got over 80 people saying, like, in a very short period of time, because I'm like, yo guys, like, let me know by this day. I got like 80 people opting into getting a chapter of my book a week. And then I set it up. I made, I think, 12 Google Sheets. And I set it up so that an email would automatically go out each week to them, linking to a different Google Sheet. And I was like, I have to write.
Really committed.
Really, I was like, you have to write in this Google Doc. Otherwise, it's going to be empty when they get the email.
Wow. That's awesome. Nikki, that is so cool.
That is the way that I had to write this thing. And of course, I wrote it more often than not the night before the
hour before the email went out.
Yeah, so it was like, what was I doing on Saturday nights? I was writing a chapter of my book.
Yeah. Some people, I think I'm kind of this way too, just work a bit better under a bit of pressure, even if that's self-proclaimed pressure. I was always that kid in school and high school and everything that I would pump out the best paper I ever wrote the night before. I had done like the research and stuff before that, but I don't know, there was something about it. So I don't know if that's something that you experience in high school and college and stuff too, but some people that's just how they work.
You remember when I said I did my book proposal in 48
hours?
Right. Yeah. But I will say I need that manufactured pressure to like create. It's like something about it. But what I realized is that had I had more time, it would have been even better. And so With this book process, what was good is that I forced myself to write it in 90 days. So literally a chapter a week, for 12 weeks. And that forced me to write it really quickly. But I finished the book in, let's see, maybe end of August of 2020. And it comes out in August 24th of 2021. So that
Wow.
gave me time to, like, we've gone through so many rounds of editing and, giving it to my editor, her saying like, oh my gosh, this is so good, but what if you add a story here? Or can you
Yeah.
explain this a little bit more? And it's even better than, I mean, it's definitely better than what I sent to people initially because I edited it
Yeah.
myself before I even gave it to my publisher. But it's gotten even better through working with my editor, Lisa, who's pure magic, and my publisher. I really do love Hay House. So it's been really great making this book even better.
That's amazing. I can't wait to read it, buy it, hold it in my hands, all the things. I hope you could have a live book event, book launch event if things open up and stuff, because that is something that deserves a huge celebration.
Oh, thank you, love. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
My last question I have before we do closing regards here is, was there ever a time in your life, and you probably answered this a million different ways already, but I always like to ask this question at the end, where you were living off brand and not in alignment?
Oh my
And
gosh, yes.
and what did you do to get back to living on brand?
So the funny thing about me is that I think from a very young age, I don't know what it is. I usually am myself. It's like, this is what you see is what you get. This is me. But a big part of that being on brand is trusting my gut. And I tell you, every decision I've made has been a gut decision. And my friends sometimes love me, but they're like, that is a weird decision. Like, I've moved to DC, Portland, Oregon, like Boston. I lived in Atlanta for a little bit for an internship. I just did things because it felt right, right? And when I was living in Boston and working at the tech startup, I really wasn't living on brand throughout that entire
Mm,
period because I had quit my job right before I started that opportunity. I quit Intel, a job that paid me really well, that I really loved, to start a business. And I chickened out of it. And that was the
mm.
most off brand thing because my guts kept saying, go for it, go for it, go for it regarding my business. And I kept saying, how am I going to make money? Oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And it was really just, I turned into a soulless zombie, for lack of a better
Mm,
word. I was miserable. I gained weight. I wasn't bubbly and happy, which is like 90% of my
yeah.
brand is my blind optimism and bubbliness backed with, like, I like numbers and stuff, but I just was not me, and people could feel it and people could tell it. And if I didn't quit that job, I'm sure they would have fired me at some point because I was just so like, ugh.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we all have those off-brand moments, but it's like now we can look back and be like, gosh, I've come so incredibly far. And you realize, or in that moment where you didn't realize that your life is about to completely change, you just have to believe in yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any last thoughts before we say goodbye? And kind of also tell us what you're working on right now, where we can find more of you and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So, last words that I will say, I guess they won't be my last words if I'm then going to tell people how they can connect with me. But I guess last piece of advice is definitely just be yourself unapologetically. Like, show up as yourself unapologetically. And if making a decision doesn't make any sense to anybody else, but it feels right, it really feels right, then go for it. Find a way to go
Yeah.
for it. Just do it because, life is, as somebody recently said to me, too long to be miserable instead of saying too
Mm,
short. And I was like, ah, I like that. And so, definitely just be yourself and go for what you want.
love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And where
And
can we connect with you?
connecting with me and what I'm working on. So right now, I feel like 2021 for me is like the year of book because I'm still, as we're recording this, I'm going through like a final round of editing, and then I've been working on the marketing plan and stuff like that this whole time. And so I feel like, and it doesn't come out till August 24th. So definitely through at least September, I'll be focused on book related things. But outside of that, best way to connect with me and to give value to folks, if you're down with it, is I have this new quiz that literally just launching in a little less than a week from when this is recording. It's called mynextstepquiz.com, and it's literally you answer these questions and it helps you figure out the next step that you should take for your business, where based off of where you are right now in terms of what you should focus on. So
So
that,
needed.
yeah, because I'm sure people are always like, what should I be doing? What's my next step after like listening? You've said so much, Nikki. What should I focus on? So definitely check out mynextstepquiz.com, and when you get your results, you'll get videos and cool stuff from me, and
That's
then you can always
awesome.
send me an email or a DM somewhere, and we'll chat.
Cool. That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of this story, your tips, your wisdom that you shared with us. And just thank you for being here with us and for just having such a fun conversation with us and sharing with us everything that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yes, it so was. We should do it again.
Yes.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.